Welcome, fellow Falcon Flyers. This is episode 91 of Brain Software with Mike Mandel, and I'm Chris Thompson. With fabulous and forceful abandon, we fly the right birds, and we fly them hard, and we fly them well. And we fly them for you.
Yes.
And we fly them for Nelson Mandela.
We do.
And we fly them for Jack Ruby.
Hurrah!
Whatever happened to that old tranquility we used to know?
These are days of victory!
We calls this SOB of a hypnotic storm, and it's really enjoying being here. So let's welcome to the very beak of the eye of the eagle of the Transicane, please welcome the walking hypnosis machine.
That's me.
A man who is only 1 degree of separation from Miley Cyrus.
True.
A man who recently booted me in the testicles, although he claims it was an accident.
It was.
Mike Mandel!
Yes, Chris, the usual hilarious banter ensues now.
Oh,
I wasn't
yeah.
supposed to read that
you were
part out
supposed to read
loud.
that part out. Yeah. The bits of script that we actually do have, we usually write that in there. Usual hilarious banter.
I like being the walking hypnosis machine, but I can say that about you now, too. Because your hypnotic skills have gone pretty stellar in the last decade.
I was going to say, you're getting pretty old, so the walking part, I'm not sure how long that's going to last. I might be pushing you around in a wheelchair soon.
It worked for Milton Erickson. You're such a bast. I didn't say bastard. I said bastard. It was okay.
I want to bring this up because what was it I said to you at Hypnothoughts Live last year?
You said something horrible about me with frickin' IV leads.
I said, we're never leaving this conference. I'm going to be pushing you around in a wheelchair. And then you corrected me. You said, no, I'll be pushing you around.
Yeah. You said, no, it was something like, will you still be coming here even when you're old? And I said, yes, Chris, I'll be pushing your wheelchair. That's what
it was said. It was something like that.
1 degree of separation from Miley Cyrus. Absolutely true and weirdly true. My friend Stefan Macchio wrote Wrecking Ball for her. So it's just got an email from him a couple of weeks ago. Super
the
nice.
Musical portion of it, not the lyrics, right?
That's correct. Yeah. He wrote the music.
Guy's awesome.
Let's talk about recently booting you in the testicles. Now, he's going to tell it his way, and I'll tell you what actually happened. So you tell it your way first.
We were in jiu-jitsu class, and I was, in my usual hilariously aggressive style, practicing a technique of hammer fisting someone in the nose. Well, the top of the nose, right? What do you call that? The bridge of the nose?
The nose.
The nose. Basically, where the nose connects to the forehead. And I made very light contact with Mike's actual bridge of his head. He started immediately tearing in the eye due to this tickle-like touch, which he immediately responded with a flick of his toes. Which he didn't wear Blundstones that night.
No,
so
I had soft shoes.
You had pointy soft shoes, though.
I had a pair of Prada soft
anyway,
shoes.
They made perfect contact in the reason that you don't want happening.
Here's what actually happened. Chris has been doing this gymnastics training, and I got to hand it to him. He is the fittest I've ever seen him. He just did some test, and he's like, physically, he's like 23 years old, and it's really annoying.
Yeah, my metabolic age is supposedly 24.
Which is insane. Right now, after Christmas food and everything, I feel like mine is about 130. So in class, Chris not knowing his own strength, which anyone in the jiu-jitsu class will tell you is true. He gets really aggressive and he starts hurting people because he doesn't know how strong he is. And he comes at me and starts swinging these freaking hammer fists at me, both fists. And I'm just casually blocking with the tips of my elbows so the bone is catching you on the arm. Just brilliantly done. Then he just steps right in without warning and hammers me in the bridge of the nose. So I broke my nose on stage in Britain in 1999. I had to go to the hospital, Royal Berkshire Hospital, sit there for 4 hours with a fracture in 2 areas of my nose. So I'm sensitive to this. I got a big nose. He hammers me in the nose. Instinctively, I immediately just delivered a mild kick to the testicle. And it's amazing how quickly that just fixed everything.
And ladies and gentlemen, somewhere in the middle of those two stories you'll find the truth, which we both admit, which is hilarious.
Buddy, what are we talking about today?
Today we're doing a podcast that is all about hypnosis. Sometimes we meander into areas of personal, more than just meander. Sometimes we go far away from pure hypnosis and we do relationships, personal development, all kinds of stuff being more influential. Today we want to get back a bit more firmly into the field of hypnosis and spend some time talking about all kinds of different things. So Mike we have no official script here, but we have a bunch of talking points. So let's start with, where did hypnosis come from?
Well, that's a good one, Chris, because hypnosis has always been with us since sentient human beings walked the earth, because people have developed trance states for millennia. And if you follow it back to so-called primitive tribes, I'm reluctant to use that phrase, but there's a lot of drumming. There's, stories around firelight, and the wise women and the medicine men of tribes would do drumming. There'd be chanting. All of these things are amazing trance inducers. And also these so-called primitive tribes would tell metaphors. They'd tell the story. In Australia, it's the dream time that the Aboriginals talk about. And all of these stories not only preserve the wise women and the medicine men, but they are great trance inducers as well. Like as I do, that telling a story is one of the most amazing ways of inducing trance that you can possibly do.
Absolutely. And in fact, I remember many nights when I wanted to get my kids to go to sleep when they were very young, I would tell them stories.
What kind of things would you tell them?
Just anything.
Not terrifying stuff.
Like although that's the wrong kind of trance, right? We want sleepy trances. So bunnies looking for a cozy spot to lie down.
Yeah, you don't say to your kids, let me tell you about the sinking of the Titanic.
All kinds of stuff. Sleep. And so stories, we all know people who are incredibly good storytellers. Well, you are one, so I guess.
Well, you are too. But your children, Garifraxa and Grophilia, how did they respond to the stories?
Well, usually, and we'll maybe get more into the embedded commands, since I know you just made up two more hilarious names.
That's a place in Ontario.
So they would respond very well because, as you've always taught, let's spend a minute there on this
whatever
idea.
Time you want, buddy.
When you are telling a story, this is the most conversational and covert method of hypnosis you can effectively do, and it happens all the time. Movies are stories. Sometimes, plays are stories.
Absolutely.
Right? All these things are stories.
Plays and opera are using archetypal characters that also trigger deep unconscious resonance. And Derek Bomber said one of the most powerful hypnotic inductions, he said, is when a minister says, "Shall we pray?" Closes their hands, fold their eyes, and often go into a trance. And if you're telling a story even to adults, as we teach at Architecture of Hypnosis in Toronto, that one of the best ways, if you're dealing with a bank manager who has high blood pressure and needs to take a break, if you start to tell a story to affect his behavior and say, once upon a time there was a bank manager with high blood pressure, he's going to see right through. Yeah,
well, this is what I wanted to get at. The idea that stories are hypnotic and probably are the most naturally hypnotic thing that everybody has been exposed to many times in their life. And it's all about distracting the conscious mind with content, entertainment,
right?
Such that the true hidden message, so you're reading a story in a book to a child or you're having a story told to you, whatever it is, there's a message there, but you are offline. You're not critically evaluating the content.
I like the offline metaphor. Right. That works.
And it slips right in there into that unconscious mind, and your brain takes away some message. In fact, just yesterday, so totally stupid, but we watched the movie Click with Adam Sandler. My daughter picked, she's a big Adam Sandler fan, so we watched it on Netflix. The guy's
a quintessential Enneagram 7. He's just
funny.
So willing to do anything for a laugh. Like Will Ferrell does the same.
Yeah.
Just anything for a laugh.
So Click is a movie about a guy who's a very successful architect, and he just can't seem to get his life together. So seemingly one day, just to go out and buy a universal remote so he doesn't keep screwing up which remote is which, to simplify his life, he ends up meeting Morty. The character in the movie's name is Morty. It's played by Christopher Walken.
Played by Ken Sweatman.
Christopher Walken.
Yep.
And he gets this remote that's really a universal remote control for his life. So he starts pausing things and fast forwarding things, and he starts fast forwarding through all the stressful parts of his life. Then the remote starts learning, and he essentially starts skipping all the best parts of his life because the remote just got...
I know people who do that.
Anyway, and then of course at the end, I won't spoil the ending if you haven't seen it. It's a very old movie, so I suppose there's no real issue here in spoiling it. But basically, let's just say bad things happen. He has a crappy life as a result of this.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, it was all a dream. He realizes that work is taking too much priority in his life. Family comes first, and he essentially has this huge revelation, runs home, hugs his wife, his kids, and changes his entire life.
Okay.
All from a dream. Right now, this is a bit too obvious because he's in the dream. But the point is, you watch that movie, you're going to go into trance, and try to watch that movie and not have this feeling like, do you think maybe I work too much?
Yeah,
or something like that.
Map across.
It will map across for you.
And Chris, I said the ultimate film for hypnosis to me is still My Dinner with Andre.
Mm-hmm.
If any of our listeners have not watch that. Watch it online. Find an opportunity. My Dinner with Andre is Wally Shawn and Andre Gregory playing themselves. Wally being an actor, and he was in Princess Bride, and Andre Gregory was a director. And they meet after many years of not seeing each other. All Wally knows is that Andre's had a breakdown. He wants to have dinner together in New York. And the entire film is Wally and Andre playing themselves, having dinner together in real time. That's the whole film.
That's absolutely wow.
And they have, as I think Siskel and Ebert put it, ridiculously fascinating conversations. There's so much hypnosis in that. And tell me, do you agree, Chris, that television, the focus of on a television screen causes trance really, really readily?
I think so.
Yeah, because the locus of the focus is the screen.
Well, let's get back into from conversational storytelling.
No, but I mean a hilarious point here. So this conversational story actually, in My Dinner with Andre, actually created a visual hallucination with me, because there's a part when he's talking about being a pantomime cat in a play with this hat, this head on, this artificial paper mache head.
Okay.
I told this in the class, and they made. When it came back to him, when he's talking about it, they made his hair stick up like cat ears, and they've done his makeup. He looks like a cat, and it's freaking hilarious. And then I told somebody about this, and I saw the movie again, and they didn't change his makeup at all. I totally hallucinated.
You hallucinated the whole thing.
Right into the story. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, man.
Yeah, these things cause trance, no question. And on this thing about stories and chanting and drumming and all of these things creating trance states, maybe not a formalized hypnotic induction, but they cause natural trances. We also utilize this in every podcast with our metaphor.
Absolutely.
That we tell near the end.
So the idea of focus, you say not a formalized trance induction. I think that when we say formalized trance induction, we mean that we are doing it on purpose, too.
Right, like a ritualistic trance induction, as James Tritt would put it.
Right.
Where, stare at this, your eyes are getting, whatever you're calling it.
So what we've discovered, what people in this field have discovered over more than a century, is that it isn't visual fixation that is required. It's just fixation of attention, period, on something, right?
Right.
So whether it be the chanting and the drumming or the story
wrapping your mind around an idea, like Elman said, it was James Braid who thought that visual focus was what caused trance. And that's how he created the term hypnosis, and he didn't actually, he stole it from a Frenchman, but who has an amazingly complex name. But yeah, he thought it was the eye focus and eye fatigue and focusing the eyes, but
hence
it is focus of attention.
The fixation of attention on the swinging pocket watch.
It'll work.
Absolutely.
But it's not necessary. So, and we still teach the Braid induction because it is a powerful induction. It's very quick.
Excellent. Okay.
So what about mesmerism? How does that fit into all this? Because I notice there's hypnotists out there now who are actually reviving mesmerism, which to me feels like in the day and age of the iPhone and the iPad and all of these wonderful things from Apple.
Let's go back to pulse tone.
Well, no, I was saying let's go back to telegraphy.
Yeah.
Telemetry. Let's send telegraph messages to each other. It's going so far back.
Yeah.
I think there's a beautiful ludicrosity to it.
Well, why not, let's get rid of spreadsheets and go back to tying knots in fabric.
I'm just saying, if you think mesmerism is the way to go now, I think you really have been sipping from the bag of Pictos.
Yes.
Most definitely. I'm not seeing this guy, to be honest.
Well, we won't even speak about it.
No, but I want to see it. I'd like to see him do it. But my guess, without seeing it, and if I'm wrong, I'll repent of it, as I never do. But my guess is there's an indirect suggestion happening here in advance. There's a pre-frame that's causing people to expect something to happen.
Okay, so let's explain more for the people who don't know what we're talking about.
So what's mesmerism?
Who was Mesmer? What was going on?
Well, why don't you take us on this one, Chris? Let's see how well you've been paying attention.
Well, yeah, I've never told this story before. I've heard you tell it dozens of times.
Ready to leap on it and correct it, but go ahead.
So Mesmer was...
wrong. Scary?
Yeah. Franz Anton Mesmer.
Correct.
Was essentially, the short version of the story is he was a believer that by having magnetic stones and passing these magnetic stones over somebody's wound, back in the days when barbers would open a vein to take blood, and that's what bloodletting that was their job. They would, you're sick, we'll open a vein, we'll take a pint of blood, and then by waving these lodestones, these magnetic stones over the vein, there was this idea that, wow, that's going to make the blood stop coming out. It's going to cause the clotting. That's better way to... So this stuff really comes out. Anyway, so one day, Mesmer forgot his lodestones at home, and he didn't know what to do, and the vein wouldn't stop leaking blood, and so he just... What did he do? He grabbed...
I think he grabbed a wooden pointer.
It's probably irrelevant what he really grabbed.
He waved this pointer over it.
Whether he waved a pointer or waved nothing.
The platelets aggregated, formed a clot.
And he instead of applying Occam's razor that I guess the magnets didn't do anything.
I guess it's something else operating here.
I guess it's me.
I am Mesmer Man. I'm Magneto.
I'm Magneto, yeah.
So he thought he had magnetic currents in his body and could move these things around. And that was really, and I've read this, and I totally agree. Mesmer contributed virtually nothing to scientific hypnosis. Virtually nothing. I can't really say that because I think maybe the one thing he did contribute to the whole art was the idea of prestige hypnosis, but he didn't know he was contributing that. The idea that when he'd come in with his turban on and a wand and incense burning, and people would start convulsing and doing the funky chicken.
And the prestige stuff goes along with the ritual stuff too, right? So if you have this prestige and people are expecting you to do this ritual of, in his case, walking in with the turban and whatever else he was doing.
Weird atmosphere, setting the vibe. So people expected it to work. And of course, you remember where prestige hypnosis came from. It came from the royal touch. The idea that the kings and queens of Europe were there by divine decree. Therefore, they had a sort of a hotline to God. And if they touched you, you could be healed from the king's disease, which was scrofula, and some other things as well. And remember who the very first one was?
Edward the Confessor.
That's right. It's absolutely true. And he was the one who did the royal touch. So prestige, if you believe fervently, it's not that the belief is causing you to imagine something necessarily. As we've said before, your brain has an entire pharmacopoeia of chemicals that it can release. Mandel says your brain can produce chemicals stronger than anything you can get in a drugstore, which is true because your brain is producing micrograms of things that can cause immense changes in your neurology and psychology and so on. And the placebo effect triggers these things. It triggers a real chemical release. It's not like you imagine things are happening. Things happen because you're imagining it.
And the placebo effect is dependent upon belief.
Correct.
Right? Whereas hypnosis is not dependent upon belief, but we can use belief. In my mind, I think of it as an amplifier.
Right. Hypnosis is an amplifier
the gain
of human experience. We turn the gain up with hypnosis. So anything you're doing, you can do better.
Right. So any hypnosis that you are doing, when you apply a ritual and when you have the subject truly believing something is going to happen, it tends to amplify what actually happens.
And of course, Chris, we're back to the prestige thing. To build that placebo effect, if someone says, I'm into hypnosis, or I read a book on hypnosis, their effects will not be as powerful as if they can say, I've studied hypnosis, I've taken a course in hypnosis, I'm trained in hypnosis, because that very thing gives them a credibility which increases the Edward Confessor Bagman prestige right away.
Prestige, exactly.
And it's which is why, and Chris and I are totally upfront about this, we're transparent about it. When you study with us at University of Toronto, Architecture of Hypnosis, your certificate says that you took the prestigious Architecture of Hypnosis course at St. Michael's College, University of Toronto. We're not. Yeah, we're not the University of Toronto. We don't pretend to be. We rent space there. It's a great setting. It's a beautiful campus. We don't want to be in a hotel ballroom. But when you're one of our trainees and you have on your wall of your office in the waiting area that you were trained at the University of Toronto, your clients come in and see this and they go, wow, this guy must be really good. That's where they synthesized insulin. Well, they didn't synthesize it, but Manton and Best discovered it then. Porcine and bovine insulin.
So they didn't synthesize it at the U of T?
No,
they only discovered
I think
it?
they still use bovine and porcine. But that's interesting. So the students will come in and put that on their wall, and then their clients will come in and see that. They'll go, "Why, this guy's really good." And
yeah, it must be, right.
This trance really comes out.
All right. All right, where are we going now?
So
is it legitimate?
Yeah, what about the legitimacy? Like, a lot of people, it kills me, Chris, because they'll say I'm a hypnotist. And the number of people, and you'll run into this too, if you're not running into it yet, you will eventually. Oh, I'm a hypnotist. Oh, I don't believe in hypnosis. Okay, I need to clarify that. It's not what Bandler and Grinder are saying, where one of them would say hypnosis this and the other would say, I disagree, hypnosis does not exist. And they're offering two contradictory models, which are completely complementary as well. They're saying it's particularly powerful communication. But when the average moron says, I don't believe in hypnosis, and you explore it further, they say, well, I can't be hypnotized because I get a really strong mind. They're not recognizing saying you don't believe in hypnosis is no different than saying I don't believe in dentistry.
Yeah, they're taking a label, a nominalization, this word hypnosis, they're applying a definition to it in their own mind, which isn't accurately accepted by the rest of the world.
That's right.
And then saying, I don't believe in it.
Right. Whereas, from the late 1940s to the early 1950s, Britain, the US, Canada, all accepted hypnosis as a legitimate medical modality. So the powers that be believe in it, even if you don't. And it's a wonderful thing. So we know it's a recognized treatment. And, how many kinds of hypnosis are there? Is a question I got here. 2, 10, a million?
I haven't seen this in the notes, but
it depends how you look at it, right?
It's an analog spectrum with, well, it's not even really a spectrum. It's sort of like saying how many types of books are there?
Yeah, it depends how you want to divide them. Well, there's only 3 kinds of books: hardcover, softcover, and electronic.
Yeah, electronic, exactly.
Yeah, or there's only 2 kinds of hypnosis: hypnotizing other people or
hypnotizing yourself.
Self-hypnosis. It depends how you gauge it. But there's as many kinds of inductions as you can conceivably imagine. Dave Ellman used to take puffs on a cigarette to put somebody in trance, and shake hands with someone 3 times. The 3rd time would cause a trance. And there's a huge anticipatory element there.
And we've got stuff on our website that explains all about the different types of inductions. If I can remember, in the show notes, I will put a link to our Power Inductions tutorial, which is it's about 10 minutes of you explaining the different types of power inductions and how they work. And it's a cool induction, tutorial, I should say, non-induction. What else did we want to go to? Well,
we're saying, does it even exist? So then it's the whole thing that trance and hypnosis are just a model, right?
Well, of course.
But that's something I default to a lot. If people say, I know there's people I greatly respect, like James Tripp, talking about trance without trance, hypnosis without trance. And I completely see where he's going, and I have no gripe with that at all. It's a very clever thing to say. But I think he would agree with us that that's just one model, one way of looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I say I'm putting someone in a somnambulistic trance and accessing their unconscious mind and displacing or making the critical faculty become permeable, in reality, these terms are just ways of describing experience. If you think you have,
they don't mean
unconscious.
Anything.
Well, they mean things, but they're describing concepts, right?
Yeah, you can't go out and touch the critical faculty of the mind.
Hope not.
You cannot put trance in a wheelbarrow. It's not a real thing that you can touch. It's a real thing in terms of a concept, but a concept is a model, right?
Right. So it's I'm just as happy when people say hypnosis does not exist.
Yeah.
Sure, if you want to go with that model. But the model of ritual hypnosis where you have someone sitting there, you're going through certain procedures to induce trance, it's a useful model. Mm-hmm. That's why people argue with me, Chris, well, with you as well. And when people say, we do not awaken people because we know they're not asleep, we emerge them.
Yeah, who cares?
Who cares? It's nonsensical because we don't emerge people because we know they're not submerged. We awaken them. The reason we say awaken, we know they're not asleep. We're not claiming they're asleep. Although human givens theory has shown there's a lot more parallels between hypnosis and sleep than one would think. But we're not awakening people, but we use that because their eyes are typically closed in the session. They open them. They then come back to full awareness. They look like they're waking up. And that's in the zeitgeist. That's what people think.
Yeah, and we don't really care that much about what term someone uses to bring someone from a hypnotic state back to an everyday so-called waking state. We don't care if you call it emerging, awakening, whatever. It's just the description. That's all it is. Pick whichever word you want that applies.
So how do we talk about levels of trance then in regard to that?
Well, some people say there are no levels of trance. In fact, I believe Anthony Jacquin now has even gone on to explain how, in his mind, there aren't really levels. There's either hypnosis or there isn't.
Right.
And I think that's... these are just different ways of describing it. Are there levels? Well, you sort of fall into a trance while you're in a boring meeting at work and,
But no one's going to use that therapeutically.
No, in therapeutically, I think it's all just about cascading people further and further into the experience.
Right. And that's very interesting, Chris, because I remember years ago, a woman hypnotist in Toronto who I've since had a falling out with because she went freaking weird. She said to me, come out to this meetup group and meet these guys. There's these 2 young street hypnotists, and you got to be careful around them because they know this stuff inside out. And one of them's actually a friend of ours. And she said, they say you can't just say hypnosis and trance interchangeably. There's a difference between the two. And again, we're down to terminology. Mm-hmm. They're saying trance is anything that occurs naturally, whereas hypnosis is something that's done deliberately. So
that's fine if they want to define it that way. I have no problem with it.
We're back to this conscious, unconscious, subconscious. Why make more divisions than you need to? And elegance is simplicity. It's working with simplicity, the minimum amount of effort to get the result. That's what elegance is. And that's what I prefer. That's what our whole Neo-Ericksonian method is. Doing the least we have to do to get a phenomenal result. And dividing things into conscious, unconscious, subconscious, superconscious. I see no need for it. Because with conscious and unconscious, I can get all the change that I need, as you can.
Agree.
Hey, well, I think it's probably time. Chris, I understand that after a very long absence, and this startles me, Gus Grissom has resurfaced, apparently in England. So without further ado, here is roving reporter Chris Thompson with our Gus Grissom update.
Yes, there has been another startling Gus Grissom sighting. This report comes from Sam in Dubai, who was in Suffolk, England, taking a hypnosis training. Sam reports, "It was the strangest thing. I had a bit of time to kill, as we always took a full hour for lunch, so I headed out for a drive in my rental car. I was feeling very relaxed and was listening to the audiobook Men with Bags, The Life of Edward the Confessor. I decided to drive to Rendlesham Forest, which is really close to Ufford Park where the training was taking place. As I drove east, I noticed a huge flock of ravens flying in what looked like a military formation, and fascinated, I decided to follow them. They flew right into Bentwaters military base, and I parked near the chain link fence to observe them. The ravens all landed in a huge circle, and they began watching a man in a jumpsuit on a long runway who was tinkering with a saucer-shaped aircraft. The jumpsuit had both the American flag and the Union Jack on the back, as well as the words, Sirius Dog Star. I have no idea what that meant. As I watched, the man slammed a panel shut and climbed up some struts on the side of the silver craft. Then he turned and saluted me, and I realized that I was looking at the face of Gus Grissom. It was him for sure. I'd know that brush cut anywhere. Sam went on to report that the flying saucer silently rose into the air, and after a few moments, Grissom closed the turret, and the saucer flew away at about Mach 5. Sam said that Grissom seemed very fit and healthy, but a little tired around the eyes. He said, I wish he had stuck around to talk. I would have loved to hypnotize him. It would have been a dream come true for me.
Unbelievable, Chris. Grissom is showing up again, and at Rendlesham Forest, the implications of this are nothing less than staggering.
All right, so let's get back to our hypnosis talking points. Are we going to... Do you want to talk quickly about smoking cessation? We did a podcast with Steve Rame on this, so I don't think we need to talk much about it.
Let's talk about forensic hypnosis and paramnesia, because I find that very interesting. Paramnesia is false memory syndrome, and it's something that has intrigued me to a huge degree. The whole point of forensic hypnosis is one must have a method of creating memory enhancement without creating false memory. And as Melissa Tiers put so well, if you want to preserve your memories, the best way is to never access them. Because as soon as you access a memory, you change it every single time, which is how a lot of NLP techniques work. When we're working with submodalities, we're taking a memory that is unpleasant and maybe running it backwards or adding a weird soundtrack or whatever.
It is so scientifically true yet weird. It's like saying the best way to preserve your money is to never, ever spend any. And then what point does it have?
That, Chris. It's not like that at all.
Okay.
Because if your money is not changing if you spend it, you just have less of it.
But you'd have less of it, exactly. So if you screw up your memory by accessing it, the point is don't access it. It's like not having it at all, right?
Okay, well, we'll go with that anyway.
I also want to point out that in the book, I can't remember the author's name, but the book The Invisible Gorilla, the author is very wrong about his views.
Very wrong or wrong?
He's just wrong.
All right. Well, he's wrong.
He thinks that I think he says something about forensic hypnosis is basically not accurate because of this exact effect, that people will remember things differently. He doesn't know your method for doing it and avoiding paramnesia in the first place.
Well, my method is real simple. I used to regress people to the event, and that's how we did the McDonald's drive-through robbery years ago with Durham Regional Police. And she was able to report the order beforehand, what they ordered, how much it cost, everything, freeze the frame, see the gray van, notice there were two guys in it now across the parking lot, stop the tape again in her mind, see the license plate, blow it up, couldn't see it, turned up the brightness, you could see it, she rattled off that it was a Quebec license plate. I mean, a lot of stuff. Discovery Channel did a thing on this. Actually, no, it was on YTV. And it was very, very interesting because that was the old method where I used to regress someone to the event, but now I don't do that at all. And when we put the guy away for the sex offense north of Toronto, that was done through my new refined method, where basically I put the person in a trance and never talk about the case to the subject. I don't discuss it with them before, during, or after the hypnosis.
Therefore, you cannot plant false memories.
The memory, never mention it. So I've never had to give evidence in court for forensic hypnosis, despite doing many cases of it and working on serious crimes, as you know. And that's typical for a good forensic hypnotist. You should never have to give evidence because you're just triggering recall without talking about the event. So I would do it through metaphor. They find a key on the beach and decide to take it with them. And they're in a beautiful old cozy house and you're walking through the hallways. And I say a cozy, friendly house because I don't know if they're scared of old houses when they're a kid. And you will find what you need to find. There's the embedded command. The person looks through all the drawers and everything. They come out of trance, interviewed by the police again, and bang, all of a sudden they have the information. But I can go on the witness stand if necessary, and the police can corroborate I've never mentioned the case or any aspect of it to the client.
Hey, let's talk about embedded commands because you mentioned it. And for those people listening who are not hypnotists, haven't studied hypnosis, just have a cursory interest, this is a cool concept, and it's something that you can use in everyday conversation. And I think it's worth exploring for a moment.
Well, hypnotic commands that are concealed in ostensibly normal speech are through using analog marking, where you are saying sentence fragments differently than the surrounding words so that they jump out to the unconscious, but you want to do it subtly enough that the conscious mind does not recognize it.
So if you were at a restaurant and I was to say to you, I don't know if you want to order another cup of coffee, Mike.
Yeah, is there any coffee, Chris? I think you'll have one now. Yeah. And it can be as simple as that. It can be as simple as telling someone to, that they might find it interesting to get insomnia tonight. And those of you listening, because you heard me do that and I'm explaining, I said get insomnia tonight.
You will not. You will sleep well.
Going to go, no, that's not going to come in. Instead, I want you to sleep really well tonight.
Some people find that it's a much better experience to have a great sleep every night.
Yes. Well, there you
awesome. There you go.
So, experiment with this stuff. I find it hilarious. As you know, Chris, I was coming back from a wedding in Montreal years ago, driving a Volvo back then. My wife in the front seat, another couple in the back seat, John and Janet, coming back from a wedding of someone we didn't care about. And I just happened at one point to say, it's very easy to begin to get car sick. And the two of them immediately, about 2 minutes later, I feel really sick. They hadn't noticed it consciously at all. The things we do for our own amusement.
Your wife picked up on it, though.
She did.
She knows you better.
I think we should go to our empowering question right now.
All right. So here is today's empowering question. Since hypnosis is such a remarkable tool for personal growth and development, what are you going to do today to ensure, really ensure, you'll learn all you need? And since you're aware of hypnosis as a set of procedures, how exactly will you proceed, like we have, to make hypnosis a huge and fulfilling part of your life? That's right.
Excellent, buddy. Beautifully delivered. Well, I've got a metaphor, too, that ties in with all of this. And my whole comment earlier about never accessing a memory without changing it, because by accessing it, we're enhancing some aspects, we're transforming some aspects. That becomes the edited memory that we now go back to. So my metaphor is a very interesting one. Many years ago, I used to do a lot of cross-country skiing. My wife and I did. And I'm useless at downhill skiing. I'm useless on slippery surfaces. I can't skate to save my life. I hate it. I'm a person who would typically, feet go out from under me. If I didn't know brake falls, I'd land in the back of my head. So cross-country skiing was great because you get an amazing workout, all full-body workout. And we would fly, through the Vivian Forest or whatever and take a wineskin with us. And it was just amazing stuff. Well, once I was cross-country skiing at a place they had just opened for this many, many years ago, Metro Toronto Zoo. The Toronto Zoo is a beautiful one. It's really nicely designed so animals are not in cages. They're in natural-looking habitats, and it's a world-class zoo, although basically I don't like zoos at all. I don't like animals locked up. I like animals wandering around and doing whatever they like. So we'd gone cross-country skiing at Metro Zoo, and I was zooming along, and I came up on the crest of a hill and then down on a crest on the other side. Down the crest to the other side. And suddenly I noticed a frickin' tiger had gotten out. I'm serious. Had gotten out of its enclosure and was about 80, 100 feet away looking at me. And I'm on this dip and up on this hill is this tiger staring at me, like pretty well like the Erickson one licking his chops, And it was the freakiest thing. And I just froze. And then realized after a moment, in the dip between us, there was the wall for the enclosure. And he was up on a hill in his enclosure, and I was on another sort of knoll, and it looked like he was outside, but he was still in his enclosure. Well, the reason this is significant is I told this at a group of people many years ago, and my wife said to me, "You idiot. that didn't happen. I said, yes, it did. I said, I've got a clear memory of it. She said, no. She said, it happened to me when I was in high school. I told you about it. But she had told me in such detail that my brain had adopted it as my own memory.
Oh. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Brain Software, episode 91 with Mike Mandel, and I'm Chris Thompson. Before we let you go, I want to make sure that I mention a couple of upcoming events that you're going to love if you're interested in learning more about hypnosis. The first one is our dear friend, the awesome Melissa Tears, is coming to Toronto for the first time, I believe.
Yes.
And she will be here the weekend. It's a Saturday, Sunday, May 5th and 6th, 2018. And she's going to be doing a weekend training. It's a certification training on integrative addictions solutions. So you are going to learn over 2 days how to help people using hypnosis to deal with addictions, to
and using neuroscience.
That's right.
She's really good at this stuff.
She's freaking amazing, and that's why we're bringing her to Toronto. We only bring great people to Toronto. And that is a weekend training. You can find details at MikeMandelHypnosis.com/Melissa, as you would probably have guessed. We keep the URLs simple. So MikeMandelHypnosis.com/Melissa. The other things that I want to mention are the Architecture of Hypnosis, which is our flagship 5-day live training featuring Mike as your head instructor and me assisting him. And it's a great time. And we cap the class at about 28 people. And it is a wonderful small group 5-day intensive hypnosis training at the University of Toronto. The May class is just about sold out. I think as we record this, we have something like 6 spots left.
Wow.
And they've been dropping off at the rate of...
And that's 5 months away.
Yeah, they've been dropping off at a rate of about 2 a week right now. So chances are early into the new year, this will be sold out. That said, we have a June class as well, and the June class is way more spacious right now in terms... It won't
just
be.
Opened it, right?
It won't be. Yeah, I just opened it for registration not too long ago, so a few people have signed up, and most people obviously are choosing the sooner date, which is the May class. Anyway, not to Ken Sweatman this to death, but head on over to MikeMandelHypnosis.com.
Come to study with us. Come to Toronto.
Can I give the URL?
No, I want to say this. I want to interrupt the URL like I usually do. Come to Toronto and study with us. What's the URL, Chris?
MikeMandelHypnosis.com/class. All right, there we go. Yes, of course I am. You always interrupt these.
Hey, get in on May and June because the next class will not be till November unless you come out and see us in Las Vegas.
That's right.
Or in Britain, which is a regular part of it.
And right before we end it, may as well mention that we are going to be in Las Vegas again for HypnoThoughts Live, which I believe is August 24, 25, and 26 this year. We are going to be doing a 1-day pre-conference on mindscaping on Thursday, August 23rd, and we will have more details to share, including a URL.
As it gets closer.
When Mike's ready to interrupt it, I'll give the URL. No, I don't have the URL yet, so that's it. So
interrupt away.
MikeMandelHypnosis.com/Melissa or /class, depending on what you're interested in. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, guys. Good night. It's a sad day in Jonesville, there's snow on the ground. When the greeters at Walmart yell, get out of town. Your kids are all lazy and your husband's no good, but you'll never leave though you wish that you could. And the churches are empty, the taverns are too, and the hobos line up for a free plate of stew. And there's never a reason to clean up the floor, with the rich getting richer and you staying poor. And Laszlo, your cousin, just won 50 grand. He's drinking fine scotch on his new plot of land. But you, there's still hope, though your husband's a jerk. You just need a break, then you'll get back to work. So I say, Jenny, 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 why not take a short trip across the tracks to that small specialty shop hidden behind the pool hall, just next door to the biker bar where only the adventurous secretly go, and pick up a smooth one for yourself.